So women who were abandoned by their husbands had to find some way to survive, but it usually involved prostitution or something else. So these imperial nuns and very wealthy and influential women supported this temple of Talkg for 500 years, provided sanctuary, and women who had no legal recourse to marriage, to divorce, and who had to stay in these marriages even when they were being beaten. If they could find their way, if they could sneak out of their home and get to Talkg Temple, they could serve for 2 years as a nun and be legally divorced. And the temple had so much power because it was backed by both the shogunate and the emperor that even the most powerful of husbands could not get their wives out of the temple once they were in.
Wow.
It was an amazing situation, really an amazing situation. And that kind of knocked my socks off because that was the 13th century, the first women's shelter on the planet.
Wow. And that demonstrates the immense capacity for compassion and heart-centered action.
Yes, very much so. But coupled with a kind of practical intelligence, these women used all their relatives, all of their family members, and they also hired, with their wealth, they hired bodyguards.
Wow, I love it.
So they were very resourceful.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, they were very resourceful, and there are amazing stories from that temple, and I visited several times. It's really quite a powerful story of what women can do when they come together to support each other.
Oh, yes. I see that happening a lot more today, and I'm having more people on the show, too, that are focusing on this in their own areas of interest. So it's really encouraging to see that the patriarchy is not... it's in decline. Like
it's a nuisance. It's a nuisance, but it's not insurmountable.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Zen is, so that we don't get too confused about what it means, everybody's got their own thoughts on it. Can you tell us, can you give us an example of what the essence of Zen teachings might be?
Well, the essence of Zen teaching is that the wisdom and our practice is based on a meditation, so that there is a kind of awareness that we tune into in meditation that can be refined with discipline. And this is the heart of Zen practice. So it's not based on Buddhist scripture or any wordy discourses, although we do tend to talk a lot. But that the essence of Zen practice is actually in our seated meditation. Now, it takes a long time to deepen meditation practice sufficiently, and it takes a lot of instruction and work for the community. It's for people who are very patient and very committed to their spiritual development. But it is based entirely on the practice of meditation.
Okay. And, of course...
And that's what it means. Zen means meditation.
Good. That's very helpful. That's very helpful. And it does seem that there's an intelligent, a kind of almost like a impish platonic dialogue that can occur between the master and the students, which is used to make create the thought within the student to come to one's own answers.
Well, this is the men's way, which is, Jerry Seinfeld talks about it, what are you thinking? Nothing, He said, can I tell you what men are thinking? Nothing. So this kind of laconic style in Zen is very masculine. As I say, the women are far more articulate and gave very precise practice instructions, much more so. And so many of these short exchanges are between men, and they may be very satisfying to men and not so satisfying to women. So I have counts in my book of male teachers teaching women, and they show that the teaching relationship is just that. It's a relationship. It's based on personal communications back and forth, and that these magic words, even though sometimes they trigger something, occur in the context of a very deep relationship. Now, the deep relationship between men may be just shoving and grunting, but generally between women and women, or women and men, it's a little more elaborate. So there is the koan system, and it does suit men very well. Just as like one of the practice rules when we're doing meditation retreats is that we don't make eye contact. Well, that works just fine for men. For example, male babies are not really that interested in mutual eye gazing, but female babies are. So there are things that women require in terms of relatedness in order to find their way in practice that are very nourishing for women that seem to be somewhat unnecessary for men in finding their way. So it's been one of the things I've been interested in exploring is how to adapt Zen training to suit women a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like there's much room for development and evolution. Is there a place for humor in Zen?
Oh, very much so. It's always been the case. And one of the things I've noticed is that there's a lot of toilet humor, even historically. In China, 1,000 years ago, when someone said, what is a Buddha? And the teacher would say a dried shit stick. So, you know, this is really a long traditional part of Zen is humor.
Good. But we won't see any stand-up comedians in Zen probably for a while. Although
well, I've seen a few show up at meetings, but they are the rare bird. That's true.
Now you have a retreat that you live at, actually. Do you open that up to people who are interested in coming and?
Yes, I do, but I ask that people train with me at my more public groups where I give basic meditation instruction. I have groups in Modesto and in Fresno, and I meet at the Unitarian Church in Fresno. It's on Alluvial, and in Modesto I meet at the Church of the Brethren. And so I have my groups there, and people do a little bit of training, and they learn how to do meditation, and they see if Zen appeals to them and that it doesn't drive them out of their minds first before we invite them to do a long retreat in a quieter setting. So that's how that works.
Well, good. And you also still do your therapy because you are a therapist, right?
I'm a psychologist. I'm a clinical psychologist, but I haven't been seeing any patients. I keep my training active and I keep my license active, but because I think it's useful in understanding how people think and what troubles them. So I keep my training active, but I don't see any patients any longer. So if people want to work with me in terms of Zen training, that's pretty much the technology that I teach right now in terms of working on your suffering. So they can go to my website, which is emptynest.zendo.org or zenwomen.org to make a contact.
Wonderful. And that's Empty Nest?
Yes.
.org?
Empty Nest. Empty Nest Zendo. It's a Buddhist joke because the empty nest sounds like what we have at a certain age when our children leave home. We have the empty nest, but in Buddhism it sounds like emptiness. So it's Empty Nest Zendo. Empty Nest Zendo.org. EMPTYNEST Zendo ZENDO.org, or simply zenwomen.org is another way to contact me.
Wonderful. And do you have is your email address there at those places?
Yeah, they can contact me through the website, and I also have a website in Modesto, modestozen.org.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, and of course your book is available on your site and probably at the major bookstores, and it's called Zen Women, Beyond Tea Ladies, Iron Maidens, and Macho Masters, and I highly recommend it. And so we are coming to the end of the hour, and I want to thank you for being with us tonight. This is certainly opening up some doors for all of us, and you are shining so much light into this area of California that I don't know. I'll have to put my sunglasses on when I go out tomorrow.
Well, I don't want to shock you, but I think you can take it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, you've been wonderful, and I thank you for being on the show, and you'll have to come back someday, and we'll talk some more about this stuff.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
All right. And thank you, everybody, for being with us tonight, and we will see you next week. Good night, everybody.
So women who were abandoned by their husbands had to find some way to survive, but it usually involved prostitution or something else. So these imperial nuns and very wealthy and influential women supported this temple of Talkg for 500 years, provided sanctuary, and women who had no...
And that demonstrates the immense capacity for compassion and heart-centered action.
Yes, very much so. But coupled with a kind of practical intelligence, these women used all their relatives, all of their family members, and they also hired, with their wealth, they hired bodyguards.
Wow, I love it.
So they were very resourceful.
Oh, that's wonderful.
They were very resourceful, and there are amazing stories from that temple, and I visited several times. It's really quite a powerful story of what women can do when they come together to support each other.
Oh, yes. I see that happening a lot more today, and I'm having more people on the show, too, that are focusing on this.
By both the shogunate and the emperor, that even the most powerful of husbands could not get their wives out of the temple once they were in.
Wow.
It was an amazing situation, really an amazing situation. And that kind of knocked my socks off, because that was the 13th century, the first women's shelter on the planet.
Wow.
Legal recourse to marriage, to divorce, and who had to stay in these marriages even when they were being beaten. If they could find their way, if they could sneak out of their home and get to the Talkg temple, they could serve for 2 years as a nun and be legally divorced. And the temple had so much power because it was backed